So this is part 11 of my childhood storytime series, and this is going to be about moving to Florida. Okay, this is where story time's about to get a little bit crazy now. Like I told you in the last videos, I had no choice. My parents were like, hey, we're moving to Florida to start a better life. Because again, like my parents were arguing all the time. I was getting woken up in the middle of the night, hearing arguments, things being thrown, yelling, all of the things. Okay. And then like on the other hand, getting woken up in the middle of the night. With my dad like praying over me, spritzing, water and all these things over me. That was another thing that happened all the time too, is my dad was very protective in the sense too that he was like protecting my energy every night too. Like I remember there was times I would literally wake up because I would hear his voice like praying over me in my room. I'd wake up to either him splashing or I would wake up because I got splashed. And yeah. So anyways, yeah, we moved to Florida and my parents had no plan at all. At all. And what I'm getting now is we moved during tax season because there was some money. I remember that. But it wasn't like money. We weren't able to like, use it. But like we're able to like, ooh, finally I can get some McDonald's. I can get some Papa John's. I can get all the things, try these things. But again, it was limited. So don't get all too crazy. I grew up going to a lot of thrift stores, especially my mom. Again, like my mom, I got like the thrifting from my mom. Grew up again, very like budgeting, having to be savvy, managing her money, and being very like holding on to her money. I picked up on, like I said, I was aware of a lot of things. I had to be aware of a lot of things at a very young age. And again, we moved to Florida. My parents had no fucking plan, and I knew in the sense that they had no motherfucking plan because you know what? We were driving. We didn't know where the fuck we were going. They had no destiny location. They had no like destiny location, but you know what? I had heard them mention Fort Lauderdale in the initial drive. They're like, oh, let's just put Fort Lauderdale in the GPS. That's what I remember. They didn't have a GPS, but they're like, let's put it in. It was like the map quest because we were going to go to the library. I remember that because we had to go to the library to print out all them pages to use the map quest to be able to, but my dad also, that's another thing. Let me not forget that. My dad always had maps. So that was another thing. He always had maps and always knew how to read maps. That was one thing he was always good at, knowing where to go, directions. He could do that. I'm like, he was good at that, good at directions, but he couldn't read, but he would know where to go. But either way, there was no plan in action, so we were living hotel to hotel. We were driving, and I remember that there was times where sometimes they would stay at a hotel for a week. We'd stay there for a week. One room with 2 beds and 5 people. Okay, this is when I really started to like quote unquote hate my life. I started being aware. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, y'all ripped out my whole life. Everything was fine. Everything was going good. I was doing amazing in school. Was making all these friends. Allowed to go to birthday parties. And then you gonna take my ass and bring me to these fucking motels. They weren't even hotels. It actually started as a couple hotels. I think it was like Holiday Inns at first because I remember we had free breakfast. It started with that. It was Days Inn and a Holiday Inn vibes. And then after that, it was like motels because they were cheaper. Oh my God. But anyways, I'm just thinking about like the roaches in Florida because that was a whole nother thing. Like I never experienced cockroaches until your girl moved to Florida. Okay. So anyways. Moving to Florida, I had no plan. I remember they were saying that Fort Lauderdale was just where they were going to put the GPS to, so no fucking plan. Long story short, we ended up my parents, it was getting to the time, it was around tax season, so it was probably like May-ish, like March, April-ish, because we didn't have to go to school yet, because that was one thing that was going to be a concern. My parents were always about the education. We were not able to miss school. Like we were not. That's another thing. Growing up with the Caribbean household, you were not able to miss school. You're sick. Oh, here's this. There you go. You're all better now. Here's some ginger tea. Here's this. Here's this. Splash, splash, pray. You good. Go to school. Get your education. And my father always said that, like, go get your education because I didn't have one. Go get your education because you're here in America. You're here for a reason. You're American. You have all these opportunities to go. That was like a imprint. You need to go to the schools. You need to get an education. You need to follow the system. This is how you need to live. Okay? And I just never liked that as a kid. I just never liked hearing it. I'm like, just witnessing it. I'm like, why the fuck would I want to work if it's like working just to struggle? That was my mentality. Why do I want to work and do these things if I'm going to have to struggle anyways? I'm a black female with immigrant parents. I'm not going to be making a lot of money. I'm not going to be doing, all these big grand things because I'm not white. That was what was imprinted in my mind. Like when I say imprinted, I mean, that was what was impressed upon my mind. It was like solidified by my subconscious mind, and I had to like still work on it until this day. Some of these limiting beliefs. Okay, but again, moving to Florida, like we were living hotel to hotel to motel, and it was getting closer now to when school was going to start in Florida. My mom was like doing research and stuff. And asking people like when do the kids start school, and it was coming up. So now it was like crunch time. My parents were trying to figure out where they're gonna touch down. So they were looking at these like random things. I remember it was like Craigslist or something that they were using at the libraries. They were like looking through, and then they used to print homes. They used to print them, and then they would call them, we had the phone number, then we'd visit some of these places. And again, they were only operating off of the tax return money, which I don't know how much it was, but I mean at the time, money could have went a little bit farther back in the day. I was born in 93, so I kind of grew up going to school in like the 90s, 2000, early 2000 vibes. So, things weren't really too expensive growing up early. Well, at least they were expensive, but yet, I mean, they were cheap, but yet they were kind of expensive in my household because we were limited to what we were able to have. We got free hot lunch. We had to stay on the free things, and stuff like that all the time. So, that was another thing I never mentioned, but yeah, we always were on like the poverty menu because we only had one household and my father was not making a lot of money, so we were always kind of seen as poor. But one thing I never mentioned was my dad was the type of person, he was like, no government assistance. He's like, I don't want no help from the government. That was the big thing. He's like, I don't want no help from no one. That was the biggest thing of why I witnessed the struggle, because my dad would not accept help. He did not want to appear weak. He did not want to appear as though he needed it. So that was another thing that I have imprinted, where it's like, don't ask for help. You're going to look weak. You're going to look like you can't do that shit. You're going to look like you're just worthless. I would think those things and hear those things because, I would witness them and I would hear my father say these type of things. But again, so I want to wrap that up for part 11 for the first part of like the moving to Florida part. But again, give this video a like. Let me know if anything resonated with you or if anything, sparked a memory within you. If it did, be sure to comment below. Let me know. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.